Log 13. Tribal worship of the Dog Mother, in all its visible and fleshy glory, is the most common form of religion in the Dogscape. There does exist another mythology, one practiced only in distant, isolated pockets, and by a few of the older survivors. The exact details change from tribe to tribe, year to year, but the basics never change. It is the legend of the beginning of the Dogscape, the genesis of the world we know. It tells of a time when humans were plentiful, and walked upon ground that wasn't alive. There is a god, or a demon perhaps, a dog that lived amongst the humans, was even accepted and provided for by a human family. But it was no ordinary dog. This beast lived for over 50 years. All canines at the time rarely lasted more than a decade. It was greatly powerful, more in control of its owner family than they were of it. They say it went out at night and hunted human prey, bringing back large collections of bones as trophies to its home. But the humans tried to ignore it, convinced themselves that it wasn't a problem. Soon enough, as the origin dog reached a century of age, it became increasingly powerful and unlike others. More strange disappearances and even attacks during the day. Vehicles were found with deep bite marks from metal, and homes were buried into from below. The government at the time, many times more powerful than any chieftain of today, captured the hellhound. They performed experiments, tried to understand where it channeled its energy from. Progress was good. It looked as though even the secret to immortality could be gained from this dog. But accidents occur. The betrayer, as they call her, who worked at the government facility, felt sympathy for the god dog. She released him, and concurrently the all-consuming hell that is the Dogscape. The enraged beast no longer held any sympathy for humanity. As it thrashed recklessly through the lab, mutated samples adhered to its flesh, growing like a cancer. Soon what would become the Dogscape was spreading like wildfire, its maw gnashing at everything that moved, its hide spreading over soil, stone, and sea. What is the name of this horrible demon? It varies, but they all come from a similar etymological origin. I believe I've taken down names from all over the world. Ahmad, Mayan, Aduk, and yet Dog Mother is most certainly feminine. Well, it is said that the betrayer was in fact the first human assimilated into the Dogscape. Log 14. It's cold here. Jets of moist breath dot the landscape amid undulating hills. There are no proper dog trees, only short piles of huddling dog limbs. Teats are few and far between, and when I find one I must work to coax the milk into a skin bladder. I move across the hills, my feet numb through the shoes I have fashioned. I moved in the direction that seems easiest, a subtle and mangy slope that I only just noticed was guiding my path in a general downhill direction. Where there is fur, it is thick and rancid with matted oil. I don't know why the mother does what it does, but all of her fruits have their uses. I hack at a fur clump, separating it from the flesh below. There is only a little blood from a grazed dog's skin tag. I fold and shape the waxy fur into the insulating hairy coverings on my body. The dog flesh rumbles beneath me in a more than disconcerting way. It has been doing that for the past several weeks. More so the further I have traveled. It is getting colder. I can hear only the wind now, tearing across the mother. The howls, warbling and mournful, have stopped. The sharp barks and yips no longer form a background cacophony. I huddle into my coverings and shoulder ahead. I have no path to follow but forward. The ground feels harder here. The gentle give of the dogland has ceased, giving way to a dull sound absorbing thud of matted fur. I slipped yesterday on what seemed to be a lake of solid piss. It was not reabsorbing into the mother. My own shivering seems to syncopate with the occasional rumbles of the mother. Her flesh no longer seems like a living being, but I know that deep within her the blood flows. It is so cold here. I continue forward every day. The ground slopes more and I struggle to sleep in a forgiving skin fold. There is no purpose but to move forward now, one foot in front of the other. It has been dark for as long as I can remember. How long will this night last? The air is dry. The land is mostly featureless and hard as I walk. The wind blows clumps of brittle hair across my face, and they hurt. A soft pop, a subtle blue flash, and then they blew past me. My hands are deep within my coverings. They are numb. If If I explode from the ward off the shocks, then the cold will take them from me. I have already lost 3 toes. I can no longer feel that foot. I no longer bother to light fires in the deep crooks where I sleep. The last I saw of that foot, it was black and swollen. It felt like it was burning. My travel is slow. I have heard soft, subtle tapping sounds, but when I investigate, I find only dog claws moving against the ground. The rumbles have continued, and with them now come subtle rending sounds, like a mouth chewing on a bone. When the sounds intensify, I move faster. I don't know what causes them, but I do not think it is the mother. I have not found any teats in a long time. I am thirsty. My skin bladder is almost empty. I would kill my own parents for a fresh puppy fetus. I passed a small pile of humans, almost buried in billowing dried fur. They were dead and desiccated. They looked like they were strong when they lived. I keep moving. There is only the road ahead of me. I do not know what it leads to. The ground shifted beneath my feet, and I pissed in fear. Not a mouth, but a great, hard chasm of flesh and bone had torn open beneath me. A stinking, humid burst of air bellowed out, then hung in a cold cloud around me. On my ass, I pinned to the gloomy hole that had nearly swallowed me, but it was now still. I sat and contemplated it, breathing heavily, and thought of my empty skin bladders. Slowly, I could hear several dozen feet below me start to play and echo in a cleft. A soft slapping and a gurgle. I don't know how, but I knew the distance my chance for sustenance. I slid into the meaty maw. I climbed down a shorn slab of giant ribs, still red and moist, and firmly landed on the steaming, dark, floral hole. It writhed beneath my feet. I felt around, not knowing what I was looking for. My hands fell upon a thumping tube set into the meat wall, an artery. I grabbed it, pulling at connective flesh, and then bit at it. The blood spat out in spurts. I drank my fill. I was covered in viscera. I struggled to fill my skin bladders. The cleft shuddered around me, and I knew I must leave it immediately. The walls were starting to hang tendrils of meat, feelers, to heal this damaged canyon. I exhausted myself climbing out, and nearly fell back in as I crested the edge of the crack, out into the cold night. The dog flesh slowly minted behind me as I panted on the hard ground. Before I left, I considered it and catalogued it. A stretch mark. The mother was still growing. I am so weak, and it is so cold. My filled bladders with blood are gone. The grey dogscape stretches before me. I must make it to my goal, but I do not know where my goal is. I have walked for what seems like months in the darkness. I climbed down a huge mass of frigid dog flesh. It is like a great heap of small dogs, a pile of dog heads and legs, a mound of tails and torsos. It is cold and lifeless. A slow, low creaking can be heard deep within it. I grip an ear and lower myself to the bottom of the wall of dog. My foot lands on something else. I gasp, and then get caught in a fit of coughing. I don't know what I'm standing on, but it is not the mother. I feel queasy, nauseous. What could possibly be not the mother? It's frigid and hard, but I scrape at it, and bits of dandery coldness come up off it. I hold them close to my face, and my breath turns to stuffed water. I try to eat a handful of it, but it's so cold that it robs me of almost all my remaining energy. The moisture trickles down my throat. It is good. I look behind me at the dog wall, with its exposed frozen bones and happy-looking faces. Then ahead of me, the featureless dark. I am too far gone to turn back now. I continue walking for hours, and sleep. Then I walk more. My footsteps are leaden. Finally, ahead of me, I see light. I make my way towards it. Slowly, over the course of several hours. It is a beacon to me now, a bright glowing steady fire. As I approach, I see that the guiding light stands on a pole before a series of low star structures. They are like solid walls of bone, but not. They are not of dog flesh. The billowing hair and cold dandering water pile against the sides. I knew that this was what I was destined for. At one end, near the light, is a dark panel set into the wall. On it are markings placed there by some person's hand, but I do not know what they say. AIS-1 and entrance. I shoulder against the panel, but it barely shudders. I try again, and again. I am renewed with purpose by the discovery of this place, but I am weak from my travel. I lean my back to the panel and slide down it, exhausted. My back catches against a low bar end panel, pushes it down, then clicks. The panel gives way and I fall into the darkness within. I am in a small, dark, dry cave. It is alien to me. The wind blows debris and fur into the room with me. I look around. Strange, dark masses seem to leer at me. There are soft white skins hanging on the wall, and more of the unusual markings everywhere. Procedure list and keep close and warning and wear radio at all times. A bright red cylinder with yellow stripes is inside a small box. I reach for it, but my hands scramble against the clear covering across the surface to the entrance to the box. I look at my hands now. They are purple and I cannot feel them anymore. Another panel is on the opposite wall, like the one I had opened. I move towards it feebly. I am so cold. I pull on the handle set into the panel, but it does not move. A small red light flashes above it. I pull harder, but it does not move. I pull again, jumping, but lose my balance and lurch to the ground. I smack my head with a dull thud. The cold is blowing in fiercely from the opening behind me. I scrape against a hard panel, but it will not move. More markings adorn the wall. Close outer door first. I do not understand them. I sit against the panel. My vision is blurry, and a trickle of my own blood seeps across my eye. I go to sleep there, leaning against the dark doorway. I sleep and do not wake up. But how you right now if you're dead? Epilogue. My name is Charles Montel, Arctic Ice Station 1. The abomination is not here. It is too cold. Tigger and I are the last survivors. We are 14 nautical miles south of the North Pole, directly north of Vancouver. Triangulate a position based on this radio signal. This message will repeat in 5 minutes. The radio broadcast the message again, as it had thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of times. A cold, dead, desiccated body sat huddled before the radio systems in a chair. At its feet lay the curled, dead body of a monk.